Kung Fu Panda 4
was a bit underwhelming.
Today I'm gonna do my first review. I'll be talking about the new Kung Fu Panda movie, which is apparently being criticized to death. A lot of people have been deprecating this movie ever since it released, and to be honest, I can see why. Look, this movie was not even good at all. Look, I'm not saying this movie was terrible by any means. In fact, I actually enjoyed it, but it being just an okay movie for me was disappointing enough. Kung Fu Panda is one of my favorite DreamWorks franchises of all time, if not my favorite. I love the movies, especially the second one. I love the execution of the storytelling and character arcs throughout the three movies. I even have a memory of watching one of the movies in primary school, and I found it to be enjoyable. But when you milk a franchise a bit too much, it's always gonna become dry and stale. I talked about this movie in my upcoming movies I'm hyped for video earlier this year, and I was really hyped for it. I thought it was gonna be a great movie, but it was just alright.
I mean, it's alright, like...
This movie was the first movie I saw in theaters since October when I saw the Barbie movie, which was sadly better than this disappointment. I was really anticipating what the writers were gonna do with it. This movie released nearly 3 weeks, so that really pissed me off to the extreme. I had to wait 3 weeks only to get a 6 out of 10 at best experience. That miserably did not exceed my expectations. Me and my family did have fun with it though. One of my brothers even considered it to be a 7 or an 8 out of 10 movie, but it still didn't impress me in the slightest. I'm gonna tell you why in a shortish ramble. Honestly, this movie did not need to exist. Kung Fu Panda 3 should have been the last movie, especially because of what happened in that movie. Po finally reached his aspirations and goals and became the Dragon Warrior, which was one of the highest points of his life, and he finally got to meet his family as well. That movie wasn't even as good as the first two in the first place, but it was still a solid 7.5 out of 10. That could be a neat rewatch every once in a while. When a movie has too much sequels, obviously the magic that made the original amazing will fade out and eventually turn into pure tediousness. And that was something my mind was telling me when I was thinking of watching the fourth movie, and it really shows in a lot of ways. This franchise was one of DreamWorks' most popular IPs, so obviously they would do what massive corps in the film industry usually do. Turn it into a cash cow and making follow-ups with little to no effort just to squeeze every last penny out of the consumers. And the lack of effort is presented pretty accurately in this movie. DreamWorks has an inconsistent catalogue of movies in terms of quality. One minute you'll see a memorable masterpiece like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, and the next minute you'll see a forgettable mediocre mess like Ruby Gilman. Like, some people really be hating on Disney nowadays, which I agree with them, to be honest. And that hate drives them to adopt an illusion to think that the other big companies in the industry are going to be cooking a wild feast with every one of their movies. This is what happened with Illumination when they made the Mario movie, which was a pretty solid 7.5 out of 10 and pretty much the best Illumination movie in my book. But then the next year they decided to make another fucking sequel to Despicable Me, which is a franchise that also fell off due to how the writers forgot what made the original movies good in the first place, and also how they milked the minions and made a movie out of them, which killed the franchise overall in my opinion. Despicable Me was a pretty terrible movie that wasn't very good on paper and had no reason to exist if the writers weren't trying. 3 movies is enough, and they still make another sequel, which that sentence also applies to the Kung Fu Panda franchise. When I saw Kung Fu Panda 4, I was really doubting that it was gonna be as good as the last, or even better, and I was actually right. If you like the movie, then that's perfectly fine with me, but it's not really my cup of tea. It's definitely not worth a rewatch in my opinion. First of all, the movie is just too fast paced. There was a lot of things that were going on in this movie, and I could barely process the plot. Maybe it was because of how good the naturals were that in the theater, or the writers half-assed and rushed the movie. This movie is gonna be kicking off a new trilogy, which focuses on Po becoming the new spiritual leader of the Body of Peace, which basically means he's replacing Master Oogway, and there will be someone else who will be taking his Dragon Warrior position. I just give this franchise a rest already, goddammit. Apparently now the new Dragon Warrior is a sneaky fox named Sen, and she's voice-acted by fucking Aquafina. I don't want to explain why this voice actor isn't good. Anyway, Sen is depicted as an orphan who is a convicted criminal. They didn't really utilize her character well in this movie. They didn't really explain her backstory that well. I could have digged the whole segment of the film where they explain it in full detail, but all we just know is that she got pressured into working for the main antagonist of the movie, the comedian. And let's be honest, this is the worst Kung Fu Panda villain. She did have a backstory, but it was explained during a battle scene, meaning the writers didn't give her enough time to fully explain it properly. We know that Lord Shen from Kung Fu Panda 2 acts the way he is because someone told him that a warrior in black and white will stop him. So he mass murdered pandas because he thought that a panda would try to deter him from being the goated villain that he is. But in this movie we get a half-assed explanation that is so rushed and stupid. Ooh, I was too small to learn Kung Fu. Just look at Shifu's size and tell me that again. The comedian has the ability of possessing many strong villains' power and being able to shapeshift into them, and I thought it was a pretty generic plot point of her arc in the film. She wants to be Beast Boy so badly. Jen is a pretty generic character, and it doesn't help that she was voice acted by Aquafina. Of all people, DreamWorks, you chose her. I honestly thought she was a dull character who barely had any character development. I guess I like how she changes her ways and chooses to side with Poe, and she tries to help him when he's struggling to beat the comedian. I kinda liked that part of the climax. Also going to mention a part of it and the final fight, because Godmother freaking damn was so underwhelming. Since Shen had doubt that Poe was going to succeed in beating the comedian, she decides to call a bunch of random people that I forgot about to help her beat the comedian and her army, and they do so. They literally borrowed one plot point from the climax of Kung Fu Panda 3. Go watch that movie to understand what I'm saying. If you haven't already, then why are you watching this video? It literally contains spoilers, get the hell out. I also forgot to mention that Poe's two dads followed Poe because they basically had little to no hope in Poe. The writers also barely utilized their character arcs in this movie as well, even though they are used in one of the subplots of the movie. They barely even appear in this movie as well. Characters that also didn't appear that much were the Furious 5. They only appeared in the credit scene of the movie, and around that point most people were leaving, which justifies me being pissed off due to this shitty decision. The final fight was so terrible. The comedian only got hit in a couple blows. Actually, not even a couple blows. 2 blows. Hold on, pause on that. That actually sounds sus. At least Kai from Kung Fu Panda 3 was more of a threat than this sorry ass excuse of a villain. I think you guys should watch the video made by Cartoon Chi that explains why the comedian is the worst villain in the Kung Fu Panda franchise after this video. The jokes in this movie are so unfunny. I only laughed like 3 or 4 times in the 90-minute runtime of the movie. There was even a fat joke in it, which was so unfunny, and it being used in the trailer probably convinced a lot of people not to watch the movie. I would say there are some good things about the movie, like the animation and the music choreography, but I can't properly explain it in full detail, which is honestly sad considering how much I love this franchise. That love will probably fade away if the follow-ups to this movie aren't good, and the ratios to the good movies and the bad movies are like the same or something, I don't know. I think I heard some accolades that said that Kung Fu Panda 4 was the best movie in the franchise. Like, hello! Kung Fu Panda 2 exists. Before Kung Fu Panda 2 released, DreamWorks announced that there would be 6 movies in the franchise. 6 movies. They want this movie to be the new Fast and Furious or something. Kung Fu X, coming to a theater near you. Like I said, movies will usually become stale when more and more sequels are being pumped out. I hate how Hollywood nowadays usually tries to use nostalgia bait as a method to make a movie, which results in it being forgettable most of the time. That's all I had to say in this video. This is my first review, so it might not be a good video, but I just wanted to showcase my thoughts and feelings on this movie. I will definitely not watch the upcoming sequels in theaters. This movie was as okay as Minions 2, and yet I wasn't disappointed with Minions 2 because I had lower expectations for it. And that movie was actually more fun to watch in my opinion. Kung Fu Panda 4 really destroyed my expectations in the worst ways possible, and I will not be watching it in my spare time again. Anyways, I gotta bounce. Bye.